Hello and welcome, Star Wars fans, to this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks, a show where we debate takes so hot that they'd melt a planet with twin suns. My name's Brody, and this week I am joined by my co-hosts Amanda and Christian as we attempt to discover what story is truly the best from a galaxy far, far away. On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing ranks and hot takes from the Bad Batch, Season 2, Episodes 7 and 8. By the end of this episode, we'll have a definitive answer on where these pieces of Star Wars content rank amongst the rest. With that, these were pretty good.
Cream of the crop.
Yeah.
These were pretty good.
Yeah. I mean,
Episode done.
Well, also, like, the first episode doesn't even have the Bad Batch in it.
Yeah.
And when we reviewed the Book of Boba Fett, which famously had an episode that didn't have Boba Fett in it, we tanked that episode. So, by all accounts, it seems like this episode should be tanked, right?
I just apples and pears and
Yeah.
apples and kittens
And fruit.
and things. It's just so different. I mean, yes, the Bad Batch have definitely taken, it feels like, a much bigger backseat this season in comparison to last season with all of these arcs, and you also have the crosshair arcs. So yes, it does feel like we're losing more of them, but at the same time, I think it's for just cause.
It's helping the story a lot, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think, yeah, it helps comparing that to the Boba Fett. I like that contrast. Those were like wholesome, longer episodes, like complete no Boba. And here, yeah, they're not in episode 7, but since it's like a shorter episode and they set it up for like a cliffhanger and then getting them back into episode 8.
Yeah.
I kind of viewing it in light of those helped.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does beg the question, is it better without the Bad? But no, it's not better without the Bad Batch, but it was just getting back to the overall storytelling of Star Wars and clones and their role here. Like that's the interesting stuff that the fans are really wanting to watch.
Now, for people who don't remember what happened in episodes 7 and 8, Amanda, give us out a hot bird's eye view. What happened in these 2 episodes?
The Senate is in session, and Admiral Rampart is pushing his military recruitment bill. Senators Ryo, Churchy, and Bail Organa question the need for a larger military and want to see the clones taken better care of for their services. A rogue clone named Slip tells Ryo about Rampart ordering the destruction of Camino and says he can help her prove it to the Senate. While trying to protect Slip and get him to testify in front of Congress, he's assassinated. In episode 8, Rex calls on the Bad Batch to join him on Coruscant and help him obtain information from Admiral Rampart's ship that will prove his involvement. Just barely delivering the data to Chuchi on time, Palpatine emerges in the Senate and has Rampart arrested. Always one step ahead, Palpatine uses Rampart's guilt to push the military recruitment agenda into action.
I know it's CGI, and it's not the greatest CGI in the world. It's really good. But that scene where the floor opens and Palpatine rises and just goes up and you see his
talk
hood
about a dramatic entrance.
Very dramatic.
I mean, yeah, it had me having goosebumps. Like it was awesome.
Because I mean, when was the last time we saw Palpatine like on screen? It's been a while.
Yeah.
Even considering the animation. Like we got a taste of him in Obi-Wan Kenobi, right?
Yeah, we got him
and a cameo, but this is like the first time in a while that we've had him on screen, and wow, what a presence it is. And it's always Ian McDiarmid's voice that just it like sucks all the warmth out of your soul.
Yes, it's awesome. And what I love about it too is it's just so on brand for his character.
Yeah,
like all right, I gave
he always has like 10 plans ready to go, and once it seemed like he always knew that Rampart was going to get caught,
It had that feeling of, I don't know, to me it didn't feel like he was always going to get caught, but it felt like he was watching this conversation and it's like, all right, this is getting out of hand, let's go. And he was like
I'll take care of it myself.
I'll take care of this right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and that was cold. Admiral Rampart was a big part of season 1. He like destroyed Camino, and he was a pretty badass figure all throughout this second season too, and now it's just kind of he's expendable.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's getting in the way of Palpatine's larger mission, then bye.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the lesson there. Just expendable. It doesn't fit the agenda, and let's.
If anything,
your
the way
purpose
that
has
he
been served.
the way that he perfectly manipulates it, that, well, obviously if people like Rampart are invading our military, then we need a stronger military, is just
Yeah.
evil
twisting.
textbook 101.
Oh, just so layered. And what's also interesting is it's just, it's a parallel to what we're seeing with the clones is, all right, you've outlived your purpose. You're done.
Bye.
Mhm.
And we'll find a way of disposing of anyone, which is really, it's interesting. So what I want to know is if you didn't know anything about Palpatine, you don't know he's a Sith Lord. Where do you vote on this? Do you think at this point, yeah, we need a not global, a galactic wide military to protect us, or do you think, yeah, this is overkill? It's kind of overstepping here. We don't need a military.
I
of
am definitely
stormtroopers.
team Bail Organa and Chuchi on this.
Yeah, but you don't know them. You're just you're a
Oh, I'm anti-military all the way.
Bail.
Bail.
I wrote a note earlier when watching this episode. Everything that Bale was saying, I love how he has he's like the conspiracy theorist. He's got the hat on and he's piecing it all together,
Mhm.
and he's right. And like that was I just really enjoyed seeing his hand at this and seeing Bale having another, again, significant role with Star Wars.
Yeah.
So that was, I thought that was very well done in terms of the storytelling, because we know we're going from A to B.
Mhm.
The Bad Batch is just this vehicle show that's getting us there. And I think it was a rewarding piece, especially when Palpatine comes in. That was a good way to connect those dots.
But I love how they're, from the story perspective, how they're now writing in how stormtroopers came to be. And I mean, that's this whole thing. What's the transition from clones to stormtroopers? But these two episodes break down the complexities of that. Okay, like one army's, we're doing away with them. Let's talk about their pensions. And they're like, I'm going to keep fighting. She's like, you're not going to do that forever. We need a plan.
But they're like, he says, like, we're not programmed to even consider that reality.
Yeah, and it's just like, through their trainings, no one ever thought that far because they didn't care. There was no advocate for them.
Yeah, it wasn't built into their design,
and it clearly like just wasn't even built into the like process.
Yeah,
no one
like
cared.
No one had the foresight to be like, so what happens afterwards?
Which is a huge oversight. Like, what is?
We just created all of these human beings
with 1 million more units well on the way.
Yeah, no
what are we gonna do with
kidding.
those when they're done? I don't know, but we got 1 million more units well on the way.
Yeah.
Once we have no idea. I mean, it was just so wild that, look, I mean, Palpatine's, it's interesting because he's got other things he wants to spend money on. He doesn't care about their retirement. So he doesn't care about what they want. And, you're going to see that with stormtroopers. Like, okay, now here's the introduction. Obviously,
maybe that's why stormtroopers are so terrible, because they're not getting paid well.
got
They
an
don't have any
incentive.
pensions. Yeah, they probably don't even have health care.
Yeah.
So they're like, yeah, but shoot, pew pew.
They've got crappier armor. They're not trained as well. We know that.
Yeah.
Like they're just a mass, just numbers, which is why no one cares. But it's interesting. I personally, being a little bit more, I think libertarian myself, I feel like I would be against the Imperial Army. Like, wait, why can't these worlds govern themselves? Like, why do we need this big government taking care of us? Like, no, like, well, we're fine. Why do you? And that's where I'm like, I can, like, obviously in that room, what's interesting, I love is that they're calling out like the folks who are in line with this Imperial Army. There's a high degree of hostility. And if you, like, what's her name? Like the lady who was calling out everyone else, like Senator Organa or Senator Chuchi, who says you could speak for them. It's like, this mocking tone that like, you're an idiot if you think this is wrong. And which is I guess no different than C-SPAN. But
And it's also just you saying that brought up that there's also a huge like age difference there too, from the like snarky like, oh well, who put you in charge, to Chuchi, who is like really young. We don't know like how young, but she definitely represents like the future, you know.
it's just not even like, and she's not even asking crazy things. Just like,
Nah.
hey, like what
Can
about
we like
their
give him a house or something? Like, can we give him
Yeah.
some food?
and
Like,
she's like, we're putting the cart before the horse here. If we're done with these guys, what are we gonna do with them?
Yeah.
They're like, we'll
just
take
let
care of
him
them.
die.
Exactly. They're like, don't worry, we'll take care of them. She's like, let's get it in writing. Like, let's do that. And they're like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. And like, and so she's posing this stuff, and I think there's this vibe in the room that if you're not backing this, there's this stigma of like fear.
Oh
That
yeah.
people are just too afraid to speak out and say what's right. And so Bale's approach, which I really like, is I'm just gonna ask questions.
Yep.
I'm gonna present logic, and we're just gonna all think about this.
I'm gonna follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love how bold Ryo Chuchi was in her defiance of like, hey, this is what's right and wrong. And even though these people aren't being represented here, like I am calling attention to that. Like that is a very selfless act, and how she kind of goes to a clone bar by herself. I don't remember, did she have detail with her? She probably did.
Yeah.
And it's intimidating to go into a space where you are like the odd one out, and she knows that she isn't an expert in what they need, and she's like, I want to help you but I don't know how, so you tell me.
Yeah.
And that's really a humbling thing to do as a person, to be like, I don't know the answers, but I know that at least this one thing is wrong, and I want to figure out how to solve it with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's like,
yeah,
even to build on that, that takes politics even further, where she wasn't even their elected representative to represent their stuff. She's retroactively going and finding those people to do that, which it kind of even flips it on it, or it turns that compassion up a notch.
Yeah.
Which, now I'm thinking about it, I'd be curious of like what her own people think then, because they're like, what,
oh,
we elected you, you're forgetting about us. She can't. And you could totally see oh, this is another side series. You see a side series, some other political figure on her planet. It's like, she's just
the
cares
enemy
about clones.
Yeah.
She doesn't care about you
or
me.
Yeah, no, totally true.
So wild. Yeah, I mean, and that's just the political side of this. We haven't even gotten back into the reintroduction of Rex. And
the assassin.
Honestly, I didn't even recognize him. Like he drops out and he like pulls his hood off like from the shadows, and I was like, I mean, all of the clones look the same, obviously, and even more so in this series.
Yeah.
And then when she was like, "Oh, you're Captain Rex," and I was like, "Okay, that's Captain Rex officially."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was cool to see him back. I won't say his character really, like, I didn't get super excited by it. It didn't have like the most important, I mean, it was an important role, but it just didn't like really connect with the audience. The assassin was interesting. I don't know if we ever really touch on that again.
Oh yeah, the little shootout happening from like where like the motorbike was.
Yeah,
that was kind of a cool scene.
It was cool. I mean, he kills himself. I wonder if that's the first time in Star Wars animation that we've ever had a character commit suicide. So that's something.
I'm pretty sure we did was it in the first season of Bad Batch? Maybe in Rebels. I feel like I remember one of that happening. But we've seen that happen a couple times now, and that is just really unsettling.
It's dark for a kids show too. It's like, wow, this is.
And just like, what was it, season 2 of The Mandalorian? That commander of that ship, and he does the exact same pill crunch thing, and
it's really disturbing, because then you realize that person would have like wanted to kill themselves because like whatever
they believe in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a really intense, like dark thought.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the most disturbing idea in this show.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a thing, like in our real world too, with spies and everything else. But yeah, I think as far as like that plot goes, it was interesting because his like all information on him was wiped We don't know who he is, where he's from. I don't know if we ever revisit it, at least this season. And so, no, I mean, it was interesting. It provided a neat plot point. And it was fun to see, through like their escapade of trying to get the data, how they got into that like starship, crashed it down and got away. And, Tech always has to make some like, a little cocky remark like, oh, it was a little risky. That was like 6 meters off, actually. It's like, okay, we get it. You want your applause, like, whatever. Like, thanks, Tech. We get it. You're really good at what you do.
I do think that was like the best use of the Bad Batch so far that we've gotten with this show.
They all have their own roles in it,
Yeah.
Because these 2 episodes were kind of like a litmus test or like a test to the fandom. I thought of like, oh, this is actually what we care about. Like, this is a story I care about. And the Bad Batch is kind of along for the ride. But I was glad they were in episode 8 as a useful storytelling tool. And that we put their skills to the test, use them to get that information to serve the overall story. And I was like, okay, finally. Like,
let's rinse and repeat that.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what you just did right there, just do that.
Yeah.
Like, just keep doing that because you haven't been doing that.
Yeah. No, yeah. Be telling these like other great stories from around the galaxy and having the Bad Batch like help in their numerous ways. One thing we didn't really talk about was how the assassin, it was revealed, was also a clone. And then that adds this whole other like following orders, like humanity versus like programmed droid, and like being willing to kill your own brothers for a higher cause. I mean, it's really heavy. I think that's maybe why we ranked these episodes so high.
Well, that's what Palpatine says. That's what the point he uses to say we should get rid of clones. He's like, if they're so willing to just blindly follow orders, are they even human? Which helps with the whole like, do they need a pension? They're not really human. Do they deserve that? So yeah, I mean, they bring exactly that point up. Like, oh, good soldiers only blindly follow orders. That's scary. And it's like, wow, you really you benefited off of that.
And then you use it to destroy them.
Yeah. It's like this is crazy. So yeah, it's really the arc of the clones is just, it's tragic. I would say their arc, this is not the hot take section, but the arc of the clones, in my opinion, is much sadder than that of Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
They didn't have a choice in any of it. And the way they were brought about, the way they saw their brothers, who that's all they really had was each other. Like, some of them had to turn on each other, kill each other. They had to destroy their home planet, which, as you saw, tore them apart. And now they're done. At best, you can just survive the rest of your existence.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. I think, but they repeat their theme of they do have a choice, and that's what makes them different. So like, they definitely, they're just in a terrible spot. And it was cool to see, or a teasing of like, now you could picture Rex creating up all these like pods of rebellions, like they got their own thing going on. So it's kind of like this repeat of, we have a choice, we're making our choice, and we're rebelling.
Now, was it revealed that now some of the inhibitor chips are becoming less strong as time goes on? Did I make that up?
Not
because Cody, like, it doesn't really explain why Cody then hesitated. Yeah, if he didn't have his inhibitor chip removed. And I feel like maybe I made it up in my head that like someone had mentioned that as the time goes on there.
I also thought the inhibitor chip, it was almost like my take on it had always been like, whenever it's almost like someone like enacts it. Like someone has to actually say, like, it's almost like you're, like I was thinking of it that way, where it was just like someone says order 66. Next thing you know, you're like hypnotized to it. And so if there's nothing occurring, you're not fighting yourself, or your mind isn't being overwritten by that state of hypnosis almost.
Yeah.
That's how I
Like a
thought of it.
trance, like in and out.
Mm-hmm. That's how I always thought of it. Because you even asked, like, at some point, I don't know if it's in this show or where, but they asked, like, what were we doing? Like the Jedi and everything. Like, almost like now they're because like they don't ask questions. They just follow orders, they do things. But now stuff's slowing down. They're starting to have to like live.
And make decisions on what type of jobs they want to take.
And they did talk about that episode with Crosshair when in Cody, where they're like,
right.
They talk about the Jedi and Cody just like looks down. And that's the most you get, but it's just like that, like you feel like he's like now starting to feel regret towards shooting at Obi-Wan. And I'm sure in his mind thinking maybe he does, I don't know, but eliminated Obi-Wan. So, having to live with everything he did from the wards. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out with these inhibitor chips.
So yeah, we didn't really talk too much about Omega. Anyone think in the the part where she's talking with the Kaminoan senator, it was, I don't know, her dialogue or just the way she said it, it just felt very textbook robotic or something. The way she said, I don't remember the exact dialogue, but I remember in that moment, it was kind of like cringe. And then I was like, oh, does it make sense for Omega to be along this trail? But it was just, I think I'm picking nits more so. But
picking those nits.
But it was, I don't know if that rang with you guys.
Yeah.
It wasn't as memorable for me.
There was a few nits in that one. It did remind me though of something I nitpicked on where I was just completely ignorant. I don't know how long ago. It was probably a year ago when we reviewed Bad Batch last, and I critiqued Omega's accent for being a little too Aussie. I did learn recently that Michelle Ang is born and raised in New Zealand.
Wow, the disrespect.
Actually. So it's funny. I'm just like, as an American, being like, oh, like so pretentious.
Accent.
Like that accent's not right. Get it up. No. We see New Zealand accents. They're just hard. Like I get it. Not everyone can do it.
Oh yeah, not everyone's a professional in New Zealand accents like I am.
Yeah, but you know what? They tried, and I just wish you would have tried a little harder. And now like. Someone was just like, oh yeah, Michelle Ang from Christchurch. I was like, oh, that hot take's not going to sit well like that.
Our sincerest apologies.
Sincerest apologies, Michelle. You're rocking it. To be fair, even when I had that critique, very ignorant critique, which I can own, I've always loved the character. I want to see so much more of her this season than we're getting. She's just awesome. And how she plays with so many other characters who also show compassion, like Senator Chuchi, just awesome. Loved her character and how she plays with Omega. Like, yeah, she asks basic childlike questions, but they're usually the right questions to be asking in those moments.
The type of questions that wouldn't annoy you as an adult. Like, how many questions kids ask. Yeah. She's asking the right ones at least.
Why?
And why? That's definitely, and I'm not saying like that's definitely purposeful. Like that's good.
Yep.
She serves that role for the audience.
Yeah.
Like
definitely.
Bringing the audience along with that. But I am curious, what was the highest and lowest scoring categories for?
Well,
7?
Let's see.
While we pull that up, we also have to talk about the very end of the episode 8 has Echo leaving the Bad Batch to join Rex. Echo had kind of teased in an episode prior that he wants to be doing more like against the Empire. Yeah. He's like, I've got a grudge, a lot of grudges actually. And that is like kind of the first like break of the Bad Batch. And how did you guys feel about that? Were you emotional? Did you cry like I did?
No.
I didn't cry.
I felt nothing.
I know. I was like,
I felt for Omega.
I know. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, Omega, but I mean, it won't be consequential to any of the story moving forward.
But he's not in Rebels.
I'm sorry.
So, he's probably not going to make it, whatever he's doing.
Well, we don't see Wrecker or Hunter or any of them.
Good point.
I kind of
saw get a Rogue One ending.
I kind of saw it as beneficial. Like, oh, this is probably best that he leaves. It's like kind of because you're kind of forgetting about him. in the show, and I was glad you could have a little bit of closure with that, but it was a little sad, but you're kind of like, yeah, that was for the best. I see why they did that.
Mhm.
Better late than never,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of,
But this
Yeah.
officially marks the halfway point of this season. So,
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
what are your mid-season thoughts opposed to like season 1?
Better than season
A
1.
lot better.
I even like. I don't have to have every episode a part of the overarching story.
Mhm.
I like filler episodes, but and like I enjoyed, like the treasure one too.
Mhm.
Up until this point, though, it's kind of like. With that being said, the bar was set pretty low with season 1.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we're getting more excited about season 2. Maybe, yeah. And maybe that's part of a hot take, but it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But good. It has some good story. It's like it has some solid 2-3 episodes as of right now that are like kind of held together by a lot of that fluff,
Mhm.
As of right now, I am enjoying it more than any other Star Wars show I've ever seen.
That I don't believe that whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't.
More than
It's really hard to
Andor?
believe you when you say that.
Well, to this point, compared to Andor, yeah.
I did have a
No.
listener tell me they do not believe you at all. They
Yeah.
think you're just full of
I don't
crap.
believe him either, folks.
I believe me.
But that's not to say you can't like this and love it. Like if you truly are, that's wonderful
truly
and
are.
awesome.
The ultimate
Like
skeptic.
especially if you're listening, like that's awesome. We're just
What do I
giving
have
Brody
to
a hard
gain
time.
from this lie? That's all I need to know. What do I have to gain?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
What is it in for me? Like, what do I
Uh.
get for telling you all that the bad season? Listen, this is something for me. I've deeply, as a Star Wars fan, like in that part of my life, cared about
That's
since
good.
I was 11 years old. And the explanation was provided in Star Wars Battlefront 2 close enough. And I remember going back to school and being like, okay, guys, so I know the accents aren't the same in the original trilogy, but when you play Battlefront 2, see what you learn here. And actually, I think that story's better than what we're having now, but because it was amazing. Like there's a uprival or where the Kaminoans start doing they realize, oh, like the Empire's going to go against us, so they make their own clones, and then clones have to turn on each other, and they have to destroy the facility. So there's a lot of that there, which they kind of hint at with some of the show. But no, I've always loved Jango Fett, Boba Fett, the clones. Why aren't they a part of the Imperial Army at all? Was it just economics, or what was the detail here, and why don't they exist? And this show, for the thing I care pretty much the most about in Star Wars, it takes that, and they think they do such service to fans like myself who say, yeah, like people did advocate for their pensions, people did do A, B, C, D, but the reason why you don't see them is because they don't really exist. They're either dead, they're homeless, like we saw in Obi-Wan, or they're just barely surviving on the Outer Rim and maybe fighting against the Empire. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot more a Star Wars fan like myself could ask for, who just loves this. And this story has been treated with such greater tact than shows like Boba Fett, and even a lot of Mandalorian. So I'm loving every second of this season, and where it's going towards the end, I can't ask for a whole lot more. The only thing that would make it better is if it were live action. That's the only
No,
thing.
don't be one of those
Ooh.
people.
It's always better. The emotion's
No, it's
better.
not.
Oh yeah.
No, animation is perfectly valid and a fantastic medium.
I enjoy it. I'm not knocking it. They're doing a great job. The animation, like in the with the what was
Man
it,
is
the-
not.
I am not happy about
Where they're
that. That's
argu-
the hottest take so far. Ugh.
It's
Ugh.
look,
I wish the Ahsoka series would have been animated.
that's wild.
Ooh.
That's
Yeah, it should have
wild.
been. It should have been the Rebels follow up.
I
don't think that's very. I don't think that's too much to ask for, because a lot of people, like casual fans, They're like, all right, we want to watch Ahsoka. What should we watch? I'm like, you should probably watch Rebels.
Yeah, because it's about like everything that happens in Rebels. So.
Yeah, that is going to be like I have talked to Star Wars fans who are basically like more casual. They're like, we're done. Because it seems I keep getting feedback that they're like, I feel like I have to watch all these animated shows to be able to catch up with this stuff. Like a lot of folks I was talking to were like I know we talked about it before, but Mandalorian season 3, they were just like, what? Why? Like I knew this, I don't know this. The fact that all this is tying in, I'm out. So I don't know. I mean, there's merit to that point for continuity. You're going to get less viewership if it's animated, so that's.
But like, why would you watch a Clone Wars show in live action? Like, just follow the Clone Wars animation.
I mean, I think it could be its own thing. But look, I mean, I'm not knocking it. Like, I'm not saying like, oh yeah, this would have saved it. It's just like something that's already like A- level for me, maybe B+. You just would have taken it up a notch. So, I mean, like, let's talk about other Star Wars shows. Like, you can make a case for why Andor's better. I don't enjoy, and Andor is better. You're not gonna make a case. It is better. I don't enjoy it.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is my
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah.
And like, it's not critically, obviously, it's not the best, but there's just, I don't know. Give me some show that's better, and I.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
I'm not
charming.
gonna tell you what you enjoy most. You know.
And
Just saying.
And to be
The
fair,
skeptics
like
exist, so that's my reason.
This episode or this arc in particular like reminds me of what is so interesting about Star Wars, and it is like the political aspect, which is funny because that was initially what totally put me off from Star Wars as a kid. I was like, why would I watch something about like trade disputes?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh my gosh, because it adds so much weight to the reality of the situation when you start talking about the cost of the war. And I love anything that makes the Star Wars universe more like real and helps me like find my own footing in it and helps build that universe out. So that's what this really does.
That's cool. I kind of want to flip your question back on to you about, so the first half of the Bad Batch then, like with the politics in there. So what do you I guess summing with the first half of season 2? How do you?
I love the question of like morality and purpose that this series, like those are really existential, like heavy concepts. And especially for a group of clones, that adds like a whole other layer of existential dread to it. Like I was designed for this purpose. Now what? Is just a really interesting scenario that I don't think many other Star Wars shows have that type of like mystique to them.
And it applies better to our lives than Andor does, where like you see, I mean, I've personally had experienced it with my own family members and stuff, where you see a large corporation at some point, they get a new CEO or a new head, and they say, you know, all of these old heads cost a lot of money. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to do a mass wave of layoffs. And then we're going to like do a hiring freeze for a little while. And then we're going to bring in a bunch of kids who are nowhere near as skilled, can't shoot straight, couldn't shoot the broadside of a barn or whatever they need to do. But, you know, they're cheap right out of college. You bring them in and you can hire more of them, whatever. And you can use all sorts of reasoning that you want to do that. But I mean, that's what we're seeing here. And so a lot of folks can resonate with this story on a deep, deep personal level that almost is crazy to me that we're getting it in this, you know, whatever adolescent kids, preteen show, whatever it is. I mean, these are complex things to be going over, and I think they're doing it really well.
Well, let's look at our scores for these 2 episodes.
Yes.
The Clone Conspiracy.
So the first one, which was episode 7.
81.07%.
And we really liked the immersive universe for that. That was like the highest scoring. But the
what
story,
more could you want?
Yeah, but the story also scored high. I was thinking I would have scored the story because I gave the story a 4 out of 5, and I thought it was good and good setting up. But I would have ranked it even higher. I think it bothered me the Bad Batch wasn't in it, and I think when you start doing stuff like that, it shows me, oh, maybe they didn't think all this through with like the main characters that they chose for their show.
Yep.
But I
Mhm.
thought they could have, instead of centering around Senator Chuchi, they could have centered around like Rampart
Mm.
and make him kind of like the primary lens for that episode. I think I would have felt a little more connected to it because it's like, oh, that's the villain of our protagonists right now.
Mhm.
And that would be more relevant to me. And I think that was just a missed opportunity. I think it
That's
just would have
cool.
been
That's a cool
better
idea.
that way. No knock against Senator Chuchi, but it's been so long since I've seen her, and like seeing her again, I
Yeah.
was like, Senator Chuchi. Okay, I
Like,
remember a
okay,
little bit
it's hard
about
to
you.
get like re-excited about a
Yeah.
character that's been kind of absent for a
Yeah.
while. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, overall, that was a great episode. This next episode, Truth and
Was even
Consequences,
better.
85.07%.
I think Palpatine really pulls in
I gave it a
at the end
5
here. Yeah,
for
I was
Immersive
like,
Universe. Yeah.
like,
What more do you want from that episode?
That
You
Yeah.
got a Gonk droid. Gonky's fine. You got, I mean, you have Coruscant. The Bad Batch is in it. You're tying in mentions of Grand Moff Tarkin. You have Ian McDermott reprising his role as the Emperor. You have shots of Camino. Like, there's so much. You have political drama. I mean, this is as immersive universe as Star Wars gets. Besides, the only thing could really, I mean, if it added anything at all, would be the Jedi. But still, I mean, you got the presence of the Sith, so it's like, what do you want?
That's where I want to kind of getting back. I'd like to talk on that because that's where I wouldn't give it a like. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Immersive Universe because they did so many things well too.
Yeah.
But for me, like, politics has always been in Star Wars, and that's fine. Like, you can totally make good stories with that, and I think Andor has done that the best. But I don't know if exhausted is the right word. It's like if it's just politics, then I get a little fatigued of Star Wars because it's like
Yeah.
Star Wars set out to do some fantastical things. It's a space opera. It's
not the
wizards.
West Wing in space.
Yeah, it's wizards. It's laser swords. It's like that's what made it a part of that too. And politics has always been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
But when it's got such a microscope on politics, then it's kind of a turnoff for me. Not saying I'm not engaged with it, but if we're just kind of totally leaning into that, then it's like you got to be really careful about how you're telling the story to still make it like engaging and tying it back into the universe. So like that's kind of why I didn't give it higher, but it's still a high score because they're still pulling in from so much. And like we said, this is a really good bridge between what has been before and after this time.
And what I love about what you just said there, and that's what's cool about this show, is it's cool how Star Wars has kind of been breaking off into all of these different offshoots of like, what do you really care about and value? For me, like the Jedi are really cool. It's like a part of my childhood watching the prequels and stuff, but it's not the thing I care the most about.
Mm.
It's again like the story of the clones is like, and Jango and Boba and that legacy there. Like that's, if I had a whole Boba Fett show with no lightsabers whatsoever, and it was done really, really well, like a Book of Boba Fett was as good as it could have been. Like, let's say if it was 5 out of 5, it was up there with the best pieces of Star Wars content.
Oh yeah,
I would watch that over Empire, anything. It'd be my favorite because that's the stuff I care the most about. But that's what's great about Duel of the Rings. You can, hey, if lightsabers aren't in, and that's what you want. Well, it's not a 5 out of 5.
Yep.
So, hey. So overall, that one is a 85.07%. So that's pretty
2 pretty solid episodes.
Yeah, pretty
those
solid.
Are very high scores.
Christian, you have you watched more of the show yet, or have you not seen?
No, I'm watching it along the way. No spoilers. So like I think it's been fun doing it that way for me as well, and just kind of seeing what will come ahead.
Okay, so yeah, no clue whatsoever. All right, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of fun coming. I'm excited. But we got our next segment, the hot take section. So do we have anything else to say about this episode before we keep moving?
Really quick. I noticed, or maybe I'm wrong, but the speeder when Cade jumps off onto the speeder in
Okay,
a
yep.
really cool way,
Yeah.
and whatever. That green speeder looks exactly like the Lego speeder included with the Marauder, the Bad Batch Lego set that Tech rides. Exactly the same.
Interesting.
It was just
Yeah,
really
they were
cool.
like, yeah, the molder was like, we're not gonna do it.
Yeah,
anymore.
let's just
Yeah.
recycle this one.
Yeah.
That's fine. They're not gonna notice. And Christian's like, I noticed.
Yeah.
It looks like it. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Nothing gets by you, Christian. All right. Well, with that, let's do hot takes.
Don't be too proud of this podcast you've constructed. The ability to rank content is insignificant next to the power of an exceptional hot take.
Well, I've got one, and I thought it was pretty good until we spent like the last 20 minutes talking about it, and I actually know exactly where you both stand, so I'll just get mine out of the way fast. Star Wars is at its best when it's a high-stakes political drama. I know exactly what you both think now about that. So let's go ahead and
At its best.
it's at its best.
At its best. I mean, it's so much more than a political drama though. Like
Yeah.
I get it.
You could say it's strong, sometimes when it's
It's not,
good.
I'm going in hotter than
I
that. It's
know.
at its best.
I know you're going for the hot take.
I'm-
So yeah, I'll say that's a hot take and I will decline.
I will decline your offer. Come again.
I appreciate the offer, but I will
I'm
decline.
also gonna surprise you and say it's a hot take, but I also disagree.
I am so surprised after how this last 20 minutes went of you both giving your takes on this stance. Boba.
I got a bad feeling about this hot take.
So this is why KG is one of my favorite listeners by far, because looking at the comments here, I'd say like 90% of the time KG agrees with my stance on stuff. And I just know there's someone out in the world that when you two are just so cruel to me for existing, I've done nothing. I'm innocent in this. There's someone out there.
Look at him do his Palpatine victim thing right now. Let's watch, everyone. This is good.
Oh,
Let me grab my popcorn.
Yeah.
Help! I'm too weak.
Too weak.
I can't hold on any longer.
Too weak.
KG's back there. I need him. No.
He's too dangerous to be left alive.
Unlimited power. I don't know where this is going. I have no intention of throwing you two
This is
out
what
of
we
the
can do on a
window.
Star Wars podcast. We can totally do that.
I will say I'm totally bummed that when we were in London and we did a karaoke party, that with all of those Star Wars fans just filling up the bar, no one, I mean, I mentioned at the beginning of the night, and I should have done it. We should have done the Weird Al Yankovic cover of what is that? So the saga begins or something like that.
Yeah.
That Bye Bye Mr. Anakin
Yeah.
guy, that cover of American Pie.
Mm-hmm.
Should have happened.
It should have. There's always room for that.
I guess next time.
But KG,
right.
thank you for listening and agreeing to Brody when we won't.
Someone has to. Thankfully, someone's out there.
And I hope I would like it if KG would agree with me. But on my hot take, I think
Oh, you feel left out?
no. I'm just trying to transition into this whole next one. I think, yeah, the Bad Batch is a side character, nothing more.
Well, I disagree because the show is called The Bad Batch. So I'm gonna have to disagree with you.
What was your take again?
The Bad Batch is a side character, nothing more. And I'm saying that
Yeah.
mainly because we are now really just interested in the show because of the whole clones plan and their purpose. And almost, I don't want to say nothing, but not as like the Bad Batch has definitely taken a back seat with this whole
It's a good
thing.
hot take.
And they are a side character in that narrative, and they were a side character in the Clone Wars. And I think they're merely just a vehicle for telling the story of the one that you're really interested in.
Yeah,
I don't think you're interested in the Bad Batch much at all. But we're
Mhm.
slapping the Bad Batch sticker on it to tell this interesting story.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
I'd have to. I don't want to like. I'm not going to fully agree that they're a side character, but we are like where they had a lot of personality that first season. They've kind of taken more of that like Andor approach, where we're just experiencing it through this group's eyes.
That's true too.
And there's a lot of episodes where people are missing and you don't even notice. Like we didn't talk about the fact that Hunter wasn't in. What was that episode with the speeder that had
The riot racing.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, it was just
he's gone.
Yeah, him
and Echo.
Echo were gone.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
They
saying.
were on a
That's
totally
what I'm saying.
Yeah, they said that at the beginning too. Sid was like, yeah, they're doing like a food run. And that's when like Tech is like, aren't we a little overqualified to be running stupid jobs like that?
Yeah.
And we never even like talked about the fact they're gone. I'm like, well,
That's-
D. Bradley Baker was there, so I'm kind of like, why weren't they in the story at all? I don't know, but
And that's what I'm saying. Like people didn't throw a fit about it.
Yeah.
Whereas, with Book of Boba Fett and like
Yeah.
when they do that with just because their name's on the title, like people throw more fits about it. But I think the very fact that it really doesn't bother people, I think that kind of reveals our
I'm
posture
gonna
towards it.
change my
oh,
I'm gonna change my call, and I'm actually gonna give Christian a hot take
All
that I agree with.
right.
I think you defended that really well.
Hey, thank you.
my only question is, who are they a side character to though? Like, to whom? Like,
You
just the
could
story
say-
itself.
You could say Rex, the clones as a conglomerate. Like we care about the clones and their purpose and their future considering and this whole plan of how they're being handled. And the Bad Batch is, I think, best placed, or it's appropriate to have them in a bunch of side quests.
Okay.
Filler episodes, adventure episodes.
All right. You won me over, man. That's a good hot take.
All right.
That was a good one.
Man, that feels good.
Amanda?
I did not have a hot take prepared going into this, but since we were talking about one, I think that the like unaliving electric pill that they take is a more
Unaliving.
I don't want to get censored on YouTube, but I think it's a more deeply unsettling way to die than by being like shot and killed. Is that a hot take?
No.
It might not be.
But that's okay.
It's okay.
You came up
I
with
see.
something.
I can't. Yeah, it is unsettling.
It is like-
you're,
I mean,
you're the
compare-
believer. You're believing for whatever that cause is. And
Yeah, there's just something more like dark about it happening on screen compared to like when Crosshair like shoots somebody in the head,
Yeah.
Well, the good news about this, we do get
It
to
is
use
dark.
all of our sound bites now.
There we go.
You fool! Your take is milk toast.
All right. Do we have any more hot takes before the last segment of the show?
I contributed.
All right.
Yep.
Let's go. Last segment.
This is the way to trivia time!
All right. It's trivia time. Amanda, bring on the question.
All right. Question for today is, what is Sid's full first name?
oh,
It wa-
Sydney.
Wait. It was mentioned in a previous episode. So is it Sidious, Sidarin, Sidarius, or Sydney?
What was this?
Sid apostrophe and EY. The first
oh,
one was
I like
Sidious,
that spelling.
Well, what the second one was what?
Sidarin,
I'm gonna go with that.
and Sidarius.
I
It's
was
probably the third one.
I was thinking Sidarin from Maybe they said it from the
I'm gonna say
Riot
Sedarin.
Yeah.
It is Sedarin.
All right.
Woo! Look
I
at
was
us.
clever when I was like, oh, Sidious. Yeah,
Sidious.
Sidious.
I liked that.
Oh, that would have been a good
I
like
caught
little.
it. I
Like
caught
little.
it. That was
Wow.
good.
Thank
That
you.
was
I didn't
good.
catch it at all. That was crazy.
good.
You really got us there.
Sidious.
Sidious and your
Ah.
spelling of Sydney, like those.
CIDD''NEY. I was like, oh, that's a Star Wars
Those are
name.
good multiple choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
wow,
That all came
that
from
was-
right here. And then her name is Sedarin, and then immediately I was like, Sedarius. That's got to be another name.
Sedarius.
Sedarius Rucker.
Laquanis, Jamarvin Murray.
Yeah.
Anyway, that sounds like a name
Sedarin,
you'd
scale
see.
back.
Yeah, that sounds like a name you'd see from that Key and Peele skit.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron.
Aaron?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, well, that's our episode.
that was an episode. That was a good one. That was 51 minutes. We do have a lot of exciting updates coming to Duel of the Ranks over the course of the next few weeks. In July, this show is going to be completely different than it is today.
Whole new place.
Whole new place. We're as time goes on, we're going to unveil each week a new detail of something happening. Last week, we mentioned that the studio is moving. You're not going to notice that whatsoever. It's going to look the same. But on our end, we've got some work to do to put the
Our
studio.
POV will change.
Yeah, and stuff's going to change with that. Another key point that we're going to drop this week is that come July, our show's start time is changing. It's a pretty big deal for all you folks who've been listening and folks who've written in saying it's so hard to jump in at 6 o'clock Central Time. And KG, the reality is we're accommodating your schedule. No, there's a lot of reasons why we're bumping it back to 8 p.m. Central Time, which is Central US. So yeah, so we're bumping it back 2 hours. Our live time. Really excited about that. That's the big update for this week. Next week we are going to be skipping. There's a lot of life events going on, so we're going to handle those. And when we come back, we're going to take the rest of June to finish the Bad Batch Season 2. So be sure to tune in 2 weeks. We have a lot of fun videos and things we're going to be releasing as stuff changes with our show. We did some awesome interviews at Star Wars Celebration. We've got some other neat things that we're going to be putting out there to thank our fans and acknowledge all of this just hosts and people. I mean, we've had Charlie host this with us. We've had Tim. We've had ourselves. So there's a lot of stuff we're going to be recognizing in the month of June that we're really, really excited about as these changes come. So be sure to tune in. You don't want to miss it. Amanda, for all the folks who want to catch up and they're like, who are Charlie and Tim? What's he talking about? Where do people find out more about Duel of Ranks?
You can check out Duel of the Rings anywhere you can download podcasts, especially on YouTube at dueloftheranks.com, where you can see all of our previous episodes and where they all rank against each other. And you can submit your own hot take. Reach out to us on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and we want to hear from you.
Yes.
Boom.
And again, 2 weeks, we're going to be back at our normal time for June, 6 o'clock, just for June. And then July, going to 8 o'clock. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's it. I don't think I have anything else to say.
Nice.
I think that's it, everyone.
All right, let's do it.
Yub nub.
Yub nub,
Yub nub.
everyone.
Roll out.
Roll up. Bye.